Okay, Paisley, for this lesson, we are going to talk about natural resources and goods and services. So before we start, I'm going to have you read our I can statement.
I can identify natural resources and goods and services.
Okay, so before we begin, we're going to activate our prior knowledge, what we already know about natural resources and goods and services. So, what are some things that you know that we could write down on our chart?
Natural resources are like what we have like for everyday items.
They help us make our everyday items. Okay, what else?
Like goods are like our food, clothes, water. No, not water.
Not water. So food and clothes are
And shoes.
okay.
Pencils.
Okay. Anything else you want to add under there? What are some things that you want to know?
I want to know like how they make like stuff out of natural resources.
So how like our goods are made from natural resources? Okay. How are natural resources used to produce goods? Okay. All right, and then at the end, we're gonna go back in and fill the last part of our chart in. It's what we learned, okay? The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna watch a video. It's of somebody reading a story to us, and it's gonna give us a little bit of an insight on how those natural resources are used to produce those goods and services.
How Did That Get in My Lunchbox? The Story of Food by Chris Butterworth, illustrated by Lucia Gagliotti. Now, this story is really fun because it takes us on a journey around the world to show you how the food you eat in your lunchbox on a regular school day got there, who grew it, who processed it, and who got it to your lunchbox. So I hope you enjoy. How did that get in my lunchbox? The story of food. One of the best parts of the day is when you lift the lid of your lunchbox to see what's inside. Your parents have packed it with lots of tasty things to eat. They probably got all the food from a grocery store, but food doesn't grow in stores. So where did it come from before it was in the store? Just how did all of this food get in your lunchbox? How did the bread in your sandwich get in your lunchbox? A farmer planted seeds in spring, and by summer they'd grown into tall, waving wheat with fat, ripe grains at the tip of every stalk. The farmer cut the wheat with a giant combine harvester and sent it to a flour mill. The miller ground the grains into flour, and trucks took the flour to a bakery. The baker mixed the flour with water, sugar, and yeast, kneaded it into a soft, squishy dough, and baked it in a very hot oven. Out came fresh loaves of bread, ready to send to the store. Take a bite of the bread in your sandwich. Crusty on the outside and soft in the middle. How did the cheese in your sandwich get in your lunchbox? Your cheese was once milk that came from a cow. A farmer milked the cows, and a tanker from the dairy came to collect the milk. In the dairy, cheesemakers warmed up the milk and added bacteria to make it turn sour and thick. Then they added a substance that animals use to digest milk called rennet. Then it changed again into bits called curds floating in whey. They drained off the whey, chopped up the rubbery curds, added some salt, and pressed them into blocks. They stored the blocks for months until the cheese was ripe. Bite into your cheese. It's creamy and smooth, but tasty too, and tingly on your tongue. How did your tomatoes get in your lunchbox? Last summer, your tomatoes were growing in a big plastic tunnel full of tomato plants. The sun and the warmth made the plants grow tall and bloom with yellow flowers. As each flower died, a tiny green tomato fruit began to grow from its middle. Day by day, the plants sucked up water and the tomatoes swelled from green to orange to red. When bunches of ripe scarlet tomatoes dangled from the branches, the grower picked them, sorted them, packed them, and sent them to the store. Pop one in your mouth and squish the sweet, sour juice out. How did your apple juice get in your lunchbox? Last spring, the apple trees in the orchard were full of flowers. In summer, tiny apple buds grew from each flower stalk. The buds kept growing, and by autumn the trees were full of ripe, sweet fruit. Pickers climbed onto the trees and filled their bins with fruit. A truck took the bins to the juice factory, where sorters threw out any rotten apples. Then a machine washed the rest and mashed them in a milling machine, seeds, skin, and all. A huge press squeezed the mash till all its juice ran out. A heater warmed up the juice to kill off any germs and poured it into cartons. Suck hard on your straw to taste the apple tang. How did your carrots get in your lunchbox? Last spring, your carrots were growing in a field on a vegetable farm. You wouldn't have seen any carrots then, just long rows of feathery leaves. As the leaves grew taller in the summer sun, each carrot root pushed deeper into the earth, soaking up water and turning orange. By late summer, they had swelled so much that the top of each carrot poked out of the earth. Pickers pulled them up. Then the carrots were washed and packed into trucks. Bite into your carrot. See just how sweet and crunchy it tastes. How did the chocolate chip in your cookie get into your lunchbox? Cookies are made from flour, sugar, and butter, and this one's got chocolate chips in it. Chocolate starts off as a bean. Well, lots of beans, which grow in pods on a cocoa tree. The pods are picked from the tree, then they're cut open and the beans are scooped out. These beans are spread out and left to dry in the sun. The dried beans are taken to a factory, sometimes on the other side of the world. In the factory, they're cleaned, roasted, and ground into a thick, sticky paste. Sugar's mixed in, so the paste gets sweeter, but it's still gritty, so it's squeezed, stirred, melted, and cooled to make it really smooth. It takes a lot of work to make chocolate. Finally, the chocolate is molded into blocks. These are made into little chips that will melt in your mouth all over again. How did your clementine get in your lunchbox? Early in summer, the trees in the clementine grove were full of sweet-smelling, waxy flowers. As the flowers died, a tiny green clementine berry began to grow out of each one. The clementine swelled in the warm sun, turning from green to yellow. By the time cooler winter weather arrived, the clementines had turned orange and were so heavy and full of juice that they made the branches droop. Pickers climbed ladders to reach them. They had to wear gloves so they didn't bruise the tender fruit inside the skin. They washed them and packed them, and the grower sent the boxes in trucks to the market. It's easy to peel a clementine. Then all you have to do is pop the juicy pieces in your mouth and bite. Most clementines are seedless. You've eaten it all, from the first bite of bread to the last bite of fruit. It came from fields and farms, from orchards, from groves, and from dairies. So many people helped bring it to you. Farmers and bakers, cheese and chocolate makers, pickers, packers, and truck drivers. And now it's all in your stomach, starting to do the job that food does, helping you grow taller and stronger, and giving you get up and go. You need more than lunch to make you grow and keep you healthy. Every day you need to choose food from each of the sections on this plate. Most of your food should come from the fruits and vegetables and carbohydrates sections.
Okay. So that gave us a little bit of information on the natural resources that are within our environment or within nature in order to make the food that we eat and that goes into our lunchbox or into our suppers. We're going to start now with the rest of our PowerPoint. And we're going to talk a little bit more on what are natural resources. Do you want to go ahead and read this?
A natural resource is something that is found in nature and can be used by people.
Okay, let's see some examples. So in this first picture here, we find trees out in nature. What are some of those items that are made from trees?
Wooden planks, cardboard boxes, a wooden chair, paper and pencils, toilet paper, and books.
And those are all things we need in order to like have desks and have chairs and have cardboard boxes. We need trees, which is a natural resource. This picture over here just talks about other natural resources in our environment. These are windmills. These are like when we drive to Schleswig, we see a lot of those in the fields there. They power wind. They give us wind energy. Do you know what these are?
Solar panels.
Solar panels. And do you know how they are powered? What gives
By the sun?
the solar panels are powered by the sun, which gives us energy. Water resources. What might we use water resources for? So like what our lakes and our rivers and our streams and our oceans, what might we use those resources for?
Like drinking, so like you stay hydrated.
Yep, we can use it for like our drinking water. Look at this picture. What else is in this picture that could give you a clue?
Like boating and fishing.
Right, it would help us catch our fish. Also, I think of some like of our goods that have to be like imported, sometimes have to travel through water to get from place to place. So those water resources allow our boats to be able to do that. And then this is oil, which is also another natural resource, and gas, which helps us produce gas and oil. Land resources, such as our farm ground that the farmers use to grow their crops. Animal resources. What might we use from our animal resources? What might we get?
Food or meat. The sheep's wool can like make jackets.
Yeah, we can use sheep for their wool to make clothing and jackets. And what does Papa use from the cows that he spreads on the field? Manure. So manure is a natural resource from animals. It's their animal waste, but farmers can use that natural resources to spread on their field as fertilizer, right? Another one is metals and minerals and rocks. Our minerals and metals we need to make jewelry. Who might need rocks and sand? What might we need to use
like
rocks
for
and
concrete?
Yeah.
Making concrete.
For concrete, right? So our construction workers can build our roads and our buildings. How about our forest resources, our resources that happen in forest?
There's like a lot of trees that can give us like wooden chairs and pencils and like wooden stuff.
Yep. And then this right here just gives us some more examples. So like our water and our oil. Water is going to help give us energy and our drinking water. And our oil is going to give us energy and fuel. Forests help provide us with wood, food, and different medicines. Home for our wildlife, so the animals that live within the nature. And rubber and cotton, which is another resource to make our clothes. Those all come from trees. So rocks, and like we talked about sand before, our construction crews and workers need those to be able to make our roads and to provide shelter. And then minerals help make jewelry and glass and cans and different ceramics. And then soil. agriculture. So our farmers need the land to produce the corn and the beans and the wheat. And also their cattle lives on that. Their livestock lives on that. And then our animals are also another natural resource, and they provide us with food and wool to make our clothing. And like we had talked about before, manure is a natural fertilizer for our farmers to use. We're going to talk about now what are goods and services. So it says here that goods are physical objects. What are some examples of goods that you can think of to be like our physical objects? Shoes.
Like our shirts, our pants.
Our clothing. Socks. So goods would be like anything that we could buy. So like when you go to a grocery store and you can buy the fruits, the vegetables, the clothing, the books, all those would be goods. So things that we can buy. How about services? It says here that services are actions or activities that one person performs for another.
Like doctors, dentists, veterinarians.
Mm-hmm. Because they are providing a service to either people or our pets. And they're also using the natural resources and the goods in order to provide those natural resources to us or to our pets. Okay, we are going to go back now to our KWL chart, and we are going to fill in the section on what we learned, either from the video or from the pictures that we discussed. Can you give me some things that you learned, either from the video or the pictures that we looked at or through our discussions on what natural resources and goods and services were?
Like goods provide us like our food, our shoes.
Let's go back and see if maybe we can use our picture for clues.
Like it gives you physical objects.
Yeah, right. So like the things that we can buy, right? Okay, what else?
Natural resources give us like oil, water, animals, soil, minerals.
Those are all natural resources, right? Do you remember what service they help provide? So like animal resources, what do we use them for? Food.
Meat.
Mm-hmm.
Their manure.
Manure for fertilizer for our farmers.
Their wool.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anything else that you want to say that you learned either from the video or from what we discussed?
That like stuff that you eat every day is like it has to be in a process of like how you have to make it.
Right, we can't just go to the grocery store and just buy the apples, right? The apples had to grow first, and once they were ripe, somebody had to pick them. You're right, it's a process. So that's why our natural resources are important in order to provide us with goods and then our services that we have access to. All right, good job, Pace. High five. Thanks.